morning, everyone.
I think we had Tunji join earlier. He's going to
Uh,
dial back in.
yeah, I think we still have like a minute or so, so we'll wait for others to join.
Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning. We're just waiting for others
Hi.
to join us.
Sounds good.
Okay, it's exactly 11:05 here. I think all our main people are here, and everybody else can join us. So, good morning, everyone. I'll start by introducing myself. Thanks for joining us, by the way. It's not just morning. There are people from other places. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And let me just introduce myself. I am Aria Welemobo. I'm one of the members on the board of Sheya Dewale Foundation. And for those of us that are not so familiar with the foundation, because this is our very first year, and this is our very first webinar, so we're excited for that. And it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our focus is international students. So we're providing scholarships as well as mentorship for international students. And throughout the year, this is our first year, so throughout the academic year, we will be having webinars, kind of something like this, where we'll talk about topics related to international student, be it jobs, immigration, and stuff like that. So, with that being said, I think we have quite a few people here. So, with that being said, let's go into our. If you have, and by the way, if you have any questions, concerns, you want to know more about us, you can go to our website, shefoundation.org. So, our topic today is ready to get hired, navigating the US job market as an international student. So that's the topic. And we I chose this timing because we feel like now is when people are starting school, you're starting to think about jobs, starting to think about what are your options here in the US. So we can start talking about sooner rather than later. So to help me with that is I've got a amazing panel here with me. I've got I'll tell you a little bit about them, but they will tell you more about themselves. But just to start, I've got three amazing people. I should say they're amazing personally, but they've also got amazing careers and just good people and with a lot of experience, and they can come and share their thoughts about it. And when I asked them to join us, let me say this. When I asked them to join us, they're like, oh, every single one of them said yes. And initially I was like, oh, maybe it's because of me. But honestly, it's not because of me. It's because of the passion and their interest in supporting international students. So let me say thank you to our panel. So to discuss this, we've got, I will start with Kunle Arumire. I can go on and on, but Kunle is a, you're smiling, but yeah, Kunle is he came to the U.S. actually as an international student himself. He's passionate about this topic. He wants to share everything he knows. I know we only have an hour, but he wants to share as much as he can to help all the other students coming behind. And he started out in consulting, but he's been in various fields, various industries, and he's currently the vice president market strategy at TransUnion. Thanks for joining us, Kunle.
Be here.
Uh,
Thank you.
yes. And then I'll talk about Joan Odepi. Joan, Joan is just, and I'm not saying this just because they're here, but they're just like very amazing people. She wears many hats, mom, real estate, daytime job, everything. And every time I see you, you always look so calm and you've got it all together. So she's of course an immigrant as well. And when I say immigrant, you don't have to be you don't have to come here as an international as an international student to really know what it's like to go through the job search process. So she's also got a lot to share with us. And she's worked in corporate world for over 15 years, and she's currently a lead product manager at DocuSign. So thank you, John. And then Tunji Shongoleye. Tunji. So he, I should say Dr. Tunji Shongoleye. So anyway, Tunji Shangulaya, like I was saying, he's a doctor. He's got a master's degree in organization psychology as well as a PhD in business psychology. And he's worked also, I was looking through his LinkedIn profile, and every time I talk to him, he's done so many different things. He's got a wide experience, a lot of wealth of knowledge to share with us. He also lectures at IIT, and he lectures on this topic, which is about he lectures on he has a class of international students that he teaches about career. He does career development and helping them integrate into the US. So thank you, Sunji, for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Kunle is my neighbor because TransUnion is right next door to Stewart School of Business.
Oh, wow.
That is true. That is so true. Wow, we should grab lunch sometime soon.
Yes, definitely. I teach on Mondays.
All right. Okay. That's we can definitely work it out. That's awesome. Yep. That's nice.
Definitely. Yes.
So awesome. So to start, so the way this is going to work is I have a few questions here for our panelists, and they will, we'll kind of talk about the various key topics that we want to cover. And if you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to talk about, please put it in the chat and we can talk about it. And I should mention that we're going to be talking more about general job search process. We're not going to go into really the visa side, the visa immigration side. We will be having another webinar on that probably sometime in January, February. We have that lined up, so stay tuned. And I know in the last 24 hours, there's been changes to, I don't know if you guys have read the news, there's been changes to like an H-1B process and how it's going to cost a lot more for companies to hire people. So I would say, hang in there for our students here, hang in there. I'm sure it's going to run its course, and things that are going to work out somehow. And I've been learning more about like self-filing, where you can do like EB1 and some of these other stuff. So it would be nice. It will be a nice conversation for us to have sometime in January. So let's go back to our topics today. Let's go back to our panelists because we came specifically to talk about this. And so I'll let them introduce themselves, tell us about their journey, how they got here, just briefly, and then we'll go into some of the questions we have. So maybe we'll start with Tunji.
All right, I'll start. I will start. My name is Tunji Shongoleye, and I am an IO psychologist. Have been an IO psychologist for the past 15 years, and don't let the looks fool you. I am an old man with 30 years, let's just say almost 30 years work experience. Was born here in the US, and once I navigated through, I worked, went to school, worked, went to school. So my story is slightly different. However, the opportunity for me to teach at Stewart School of Business came about through another colleague of mine at Stewart School of Business who realized that I have an international background and thought, hey, you'll be great for our international students. So let me just go over what I do at Stewart School of Business. I teach international students how to channel their competencies, their skill set, and teach them how to use it to really approach the job market in the USA. Closed mouth don't get fed. So one of the things that I always encourage all my students with is once you get to the airport, leave your culture at the airport. Come in and pick up new stones and start learning. And that way, for example, I have Chinese students, Indian students, Pakistani students. Our Chinese students are very similar to the Nigerian culture where, sit down in class and absorb lecture. My job is to break them out of that mold so that they can start conversing and having conversation and asking people for opportunities. We'll dive into that a little bit later on, and I'm pretty sure Joan and Kunle has very good examples to talk about, but that's what I do at the Stewart School of Business. And the corporate side, I use data to tell a story. I work with HR enterprise. From my stakeholders are the CEO, his direct reports, especially the chief people officer, and I work with a lot of business partners as well as talent acquisition. So in terms of knowing what's out there, talent acquisition, I work with them and know how to change their minds in terms of how they look at job candidates and stuff like that. As an IO psychologist as well, I do conduct job analysis and help out with writing job descriptions as well. So, and all of this combined together is what I use to teach my students at the Stewart School of Business. That's just an overview of what I do.
Wow. That's why I said you have to tell us yourself, because I was like, I know I can't do a good job telling us all about the work you do. So thank you for your work, Tunji. So we'll go to Kunle.
That's a tough act to follow, but I'll try. So born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. My undergrad degree was in engineering. A version of internship, which is like industrial attachment. I did that, and I was like, I don't think I want to ever do this anymore, right? So I graduated. My first job, and all the companies I applied to were non-engineering related. So my first job was in a diversified financial services company in Lagos, Nigeria. I worked in finance. I did some project management. I did some internal consulting. I was quickly becoming a jack of all trades, and that concerned me a little bit in terms of what that meant for my long-term career trajectory. So I decided to pursue an MBA because I thought maybe that could help me bring it all together. So I came to the US. That was my first time in the US. Came to the US. I really do not know what I was thinking, but I landed in Chicago, and that was my first time here. And then I finished up with business school, joined Deloitte Consulting, spent a few years there. Was tired of being on the road for so long because I was always traveling and I had a young family. So I exited consulting, joined Allstate Insurance in their strategy and transformation team. Did that for 2 years, and then in 21, I left Allstate to join TransUnion. At TransUnion, as Erin mentioned, I lead market strategy for our consumer lending business. It's not the fanciest of things, except you have a credit report that you look at regularly, but that's exactly what TransUnion does. We help, we serve as custodians of credit data so that folks who need lending or need loans and all that stuff can take advantage of our data to get a loan. So let me keep it short at that. I'm more than happy to talk more about my career and the trajectory as we go through the conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much. So you pivoted from engineering to MBA and business. Nice.
Correct. Yes.
That is perfect. Now I'm waiting for Joan. I'm waiting for
Exactly.
Joan because this will all come together.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So Joan, you have the floor.
Of course. Well, hello everyone. My story is a little bit different. As Ari mentioned, I didn't come into the US, in by way of formal either being born here, I wasn't born here, or by way of education, right? However, it was education, postgraduate education that took me out of Nigeria into the UK. So there is a lot of experience to share because I'm also an international student, that transitioned into a career in the United States. I have a background in technology. And so, however, there are different disciplines, as we know, in technology. So prior to moving to the UK to do my postgraduate, I wasn't very clear what area of technology I wanted to do. But starting my master's, I quickly realized I didn't want to program because I had a course in software engineering that was so bad. And I mean, even in Nigeria, I struggled somewhat. It literally gave me palpitations and things like that when I do code and stuff. But I'm passionate about creating and building. So then I learned, and then I was inclined to just go into project management, and that was where I started off. However, I wanted to do more than just orchestrating things to be built, and I wanted to be involved in the building. And then quickly I learned about business analyst. And then I became a business analyst. And then at the time, product management was newer. And so I transitioned into product management. And so I have been doing that for almost 12 years now. But it is just amazing. So, folks on the call who may be interested in building, things like that, particularly in software, I can chime in there. But I look forward to talking about my experience because I feel like a lot of it is transferable in terms of the experience of, as I said, transitioning from an international student into the business world.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I feel like you've kind of not changed careers, but you've kind of pivoted in your career journey a few times, and I think it's really nice where you can just out. Should I use the word reinvent yourself or just
That's right.
change things up a little bit? I really like that. So thank you all for sharing about yourself. And I will get into some of our questions for today. And like I said, if anyone has any questions, please drop it in the chat and we will try to get to the questions towards the end. So the first question I have is, I'm just starting out my first semester master's program in the US. What can I be doing now to increase my chances of landing a job? So just starting out, what can I do to increase my chances? So I'll let anyone that wants to jump in first to jump in.
Let me jump in.
Okay.
You are first semester graduate student.
Right.
And I think one of the things, so I teach a program that goes into 2 different semesters. The first semester is, do you have work experience? If you don't have work experience, you need to start, looking at campus jobs that's going to give you an idea of what it feels like to work in the US. That's 1. 2, join student government, anything that allows you to really, really get into the system to start practicing within the system. Now, if you have work experience, what you want to do is catalog your experience, have like a library of your resume so that when you start looking at programs and when you start looking at the direction that you want to go, for example, an internship, you want to make sure that you have something to fall back on. That's 1. 2, the line of work that you want to do. For example, let's use Kunle, who went from engineering into insurance company, and now from insurance company to almost a financial tech company. You want to have like an informational meeting with someone that is in the line of work that you're interested in. That's 1. You want to have an informational meeting about an industry. Joan, for example, went from, no, I don't want to code. She probably went to have a conversation with someone that did project management that gave her an idea that she wants to go into project management. Your first 2 semester of school is conducting a lot of informational meetings, looking at your network. And when I say network, your network are not just random people on LinkedIn. They are the very closest people next to you. Don't be prideful. Don't be ashamed. Ask anybody, no matter what. Just say, hey, Kunle, I'm interested. Though. For myself, I can actually reach out to Kunle and say, hey, Kunle, what's the culture like at TransUnion? I see some roles that I'm interested in. That is the best practice, not just to find a career, not just while you're in school, but on a constant basis. So constantly having informational meetings based on the industry, the company, and the person. Those are the things that you want to start with in your first 2 semesters of graduate school.
Well,
I'll leave it as that.
I feel like you really covered it. So, sorry, go ahead, Kunle.
No, I was just going to say, just to add to Tunji's point, I think there's a lot to be said about the networking component as well, right? So the informational sessions in some schools and some organizations, they will also arrange like coffee chats. Think about your school or your program as a meeting point for potential employers to meet potential employees, right? So it's a controlled environment. If you think about the broader job market, that's like, what in Yoruba we'll call Gogweru. But within a specific program of specific campus, right? It's almost like the school has done a level of filtering. So it makes campuses a really good, attractive ground for many employers to bring in or attract potential employees. So many of them will invest in coffee chats. Many of them will invest in info sessions. And I think it might be a little bit overwhelming. And I think by design, it's supposed to be overwhelming, but you should definitely take advantage of those types of events if they are available. And the reason why is the true outcome of those sessions is one, yes, you can learn about the company, you can learn about the role, you can learn about the industry, but more importantly, especially as an international student, it gives you a chance to actually meet people, right? It gives you a chance to meet people who you can actually bring into your network. And because you're bringing them into your network, you almost have like first-hand experience or first-hand interactions with them, getting information about their company, about their industry, about their role, all that stuff. But one thing I'll also say is in all of those interactions, think of it as a mini interview. So you just don't want to go in blind and say, tell me about you, about your company, all that stuff. As cheesy as it sounds, you probably want to have your version of what people call an elevator pitch. Right. So it could be a 30-second introduction about yourself, very concise, very pithy, that talks through your career trajectory, your motivations for even having a conversation with them about that company. Because it's a mini interview, you'll be surprised. They'll go back, and if you make a really good impression on them, apart from the fact that you are now in their network and they're also in your network, if for some reason you decide to apply and they see your name on the application list, they'll be like, "Hey, I recall having that conversation with Joan, or I recall having that conversation with Tunji. It was a really good conversation. I think this could be a good candidate." And those small informal meetings and interactions, you'll be surprised how long of a way they go in making a decision on whether they actually want to bring you into the organization. So again, I know it's a little bit overwhelming. I recall when I started grad school, I started in August, and for some reason, we already started having coffee chats in September and October. And I was like, wait, you guys don't even know anything about me, and you're already trying to set up coffee chats and info sessions, right? But again, take advantage of all of those opportunities. It's an investment from the company. So the expectation is you also invest your time. Now, on the flip side, if your program doesn't have those info sessions or those coffee chats, what can you do to build your network? Because again, if we all agree that the networking is very important to getting a job, the question is, what can you do to get on those networks? Now, some companies will organize sessions not campus related. It could be agnostic. Maybe it's a webinar. Maybe it is. I mean, they could do so many things. LinkedIn should also be your friend, right? You might reach out to 30 different people in a specific company or a specific industry. Don't be dissuaded by the fact that 28 will not respond to you, because not all of them will respond to you, but there'll be the odd one or two that would respond. When they respond, be respectful of their time, set up a meeting with them. Again, have your elevator pitch so that it doesn't come across that you're wasting their time. Help them understand why you're interested in their organization. Be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I want to learn about your company. I want to learn about your industry. I want to learn about your trajectory." Look for commonalities, right? There's only 3 degrees of separation between you and the next person who's like 10,000 miles across the ocean, right? So look for some commonalities. It might be the fact that maybe you guys have, some mutual friends on LinkedIn. Look for those commonalities, reach out to those people, and I'm pretty sure that one of them will respond to you, and you can use that as a platform to start building your network. But again, if there's anything you take from anything that I've said in the last maybe 2, 3 minutes, it is building your network is incredibly important because it's a stepping stone to getting a really good job.
Wow. I like how you put it there. And it's almost like you know all my questions, but I was gonna lead into asking about networking and how you start building your network. And maybe I'll have Joan kind of, step in here and tell us about maybe one of the things you did or how you created, how you started building your network here in the US.
Yes. So I would piggyback off of something that Tinji said, which is around your network and not random people. I think like so oftentimes, and I like also what Kunle said about there are 3 levels of separation. I think that's what you said between you and the next person. So there's more you have in common with, in quote, random people than you think. But I want to dial it back to saying that it might, I mean, having been in the US for over a dozen years now, I've seen like there's some differences in cultures, even from moving from the UK. And sometimes it's a lot of pressure, good pressure though, in some ways. But when people talk about networking and stuff, depending on the kind of muscles and traits you have as an individual, it might be more pressure to you than others. I'm an introvert, but over the years, with the corporate world, you just lose some things. But and also, so it's important to identify that there is value in the people you know. And those are the people that you can easily connect with. Because oftentimes we overlook the people around us, be it your partner, be it your partner's friends, be it your family, be it an uncle. Like there are people or people you went to school with or whatever. There's a lot of value. So look within your sphere first, I would say, or in parallel, but don't overlook or don't miss that because there are really there's potential there, and that's an easy way to start when it comes to networking. Now, with programs and stuff like that, I like that Julia and Cindy have talked about, how you can take advantage of what resources your school has to offer. And I think that that's another great area. I know that career centers and things like that, I don't know what to call them here, but they have a bit too much, in my opinion. So there's a lot of resources there. So start there and find the people who are really looking to help. Now, in terms of I think you had mentioned something about not wasting people's time. Because I think when you talk about networking, to get the value out of it is knowing, having this what we call elevator pitch, right? But knowing what you want. And it's okay if you're unsure. Just like how we all introduced ourselves, I think that everyone, or at least me for one, wasn't very clear of but I knew what I was leaning towards, but I didn't know what it was exactly. So it's okay not to know, because when we think of elevator speech, it's almost like you put that pressure on yourself, like you should know exactly. No, you don't have to know, but go with something, have a pitch. Now is while you're pitching that to somebody, they'll tell you, well, you sound like XYZ, or you have this background. Why don't you consider this? And then you find out that, oh, maybe that's really what I should be doing, so that you get the most out of this few minutes or whatever you have with this person when they eventually accept your invite or whatnot for this informational meeting. So just come up with something. Don't worry about being sure. And then lastly, I was going to talk about, in terms of networking as well, in that line of even jobs, when we're talking about getting ready for understanding the culture and how things work here in the job market. Think of volunteer opportunities as well, if you can afford it. That was how I started out my career in the UK. If you can afford to, either do something else on the side or whatnot to keep going, because we know that it's important but think of volunteer opportunities, because there is a large pool and it could get noisy and, it might be a challenge, but start with anything to get you through the door to get a feel of the culture.
Very good. So I like how you put it there, where your network, it doesn't have to be someone that's far out. Your network starts from around you. And sometimes some of the biggest benefits you get are from people around you, because you're like, you're not necessarily doing this elevator pitch. There are people around you, they know you, they know who you are, they know your strength, and they can quickly be like, oh, this is what you do, this is what you're really good at, or this is how you should put this. You've done this before. I know you did it. You didn't put it on your resume. Can you put it on your resume? Because they know you so well, and they can give you the feedback that you need, and they can be honest with you, sometimes even more than that person who doesn't know you as well. So we've been talking about elevator pitch, elevator speech, as I put it in there. But can you I know I might put you on the spot, Julian, I know you're the one that brought it up initially, but maybe just give us like a little example. I'm new in the US. What is this elevator pitch you're talking about? How do you want me to like explain myself to somebody that I'm just meeting for the very first time?
I see it as an articulation of who you are in the context of the conversation, right? So again, if it's a career elevator pitch, it's basically saying, I'm Kunle, depending on where you are in your career, I can say, hey, I am Kunle, I have an undergrad degree in engineering. I love building products. My current role is, to work as a program manager for a financial services institution. I see myself as someone who likes building products and managing programs, and I'm hoping that I can, continue my career along those lines. Or I could say, hey, my name is Kunle. I have an undergrad degree in accounting. I love numbers, so I feel like my skill sets could be applicable in many other different industries and functions, even beyond accounting. I'm very, very passionate about doing some work that drives financial inclusion. But I'm hoping I can also get some guidance about my career, in terms of, leveraging what people have done to navigate, or people, like, it depends on where you are in your story. But again, I think in summary, it's just a short articulation of who you are and what motivates you and what drives you, and what brings you into that conversation, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. So in some ways, you're selling yourself to somebody else, and you want to create a positive impression of yourself to
Exactly.
another person. So you want to get something from them, but you also want them to leave knowing something about you and remembering something about you.
Way, like, if you
Right?
want to watch a movie, sorry, Tunja, I was just gonna say,
No, no, go ahead.
just quick one. If you want to watch a movie, right? Like, if you're like me and I hear about a movie, I want to watch the trailer first to see if it piques my curiosity or piques my interest, right? If I want to read a book, I'll read the synopsis. If the synopsis makes sense, then I'll read it, right? If it doesn't, I wouldn't read it. So think about this as the trailer of your life, or your path, or your motivations, or the synopsis of your motivations, right? And it has to be compelling for the person to say, hey, tell me more. Let's have a conversation. So let me stop at that.
No, 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 that's the best way to put it. Actually, I have like an hour and a half lecture on elevator pitch and your personal introduction. It's your marketing speech. For example, let's move it out of the professional setting and move it into a social setting. We know how to pitch ourselves in a social setting. You go to a wedding, you're sitting at a table with a bunch of strangers. It start off with, hey, how do you know the couple? Or how do you know the celebrant? Oh, we work over there. Matter of fact, what do you do? And the moment what do you do comes into play, you go into full mode introducing yourself and what you do. It's the same thing when you are in an elevator. Since I teach at a business school, I always use Warren Buffett as an example. And if you get stuck in an elevator going to in the Sears Towers, going to 109th or 105 floors, right? You're going to be in there for at least almost 90 seconds on that elevator. Warren Buffett goes, hey, how are you? Are you a student over here at Stewart School of Business? Yes. He goes to, what are you studying? This is what I'm studying. This is what I'm planning to do. You go into that flow. Like Kunle said, whatever the context is, you should always have one. Another good way to practice this, and I know it's strange when I have my student do it, is that in order for them to be comfortable with it, they have to record themselves giving their elevator speech. One of the good thing about elevator speech or your marketing pitch is that you don't want to have a lot of fillers. You want to show confidence and be straightforward to talking through it. My wife's an introvert. Joan said she's an introvert. And Ari knows my wife. She is a public speaker, but when she comes home, she knocks out for 2 hours. We have to get out of our comfort zone, right? When it comes to elevator pitch, we shouldn't get stuck. We have to be confident. And in order to be confident about it, you have to record yourself. Matter of fact, for my students, I suggest the whole semester, do every other day, record 30 seconds. We can do it. We have space on our phone. Practice your elevator pitch and do it on a regular basis so that when that moment comes through, you will fall right into it. And the content comes through, like Kunle said, you'll fall right into it. You will market yourself. I mean, think about airports. They don't have to really say it's an airport, right? When iPod first started, all we see is the white cord and the little thing, and we'll know it's an iPod. It's the same way. By the time it gets to the point where you meet that opportunity or you meet Kunle in an elevator, you're like, oh, hi, you work at TransUnion, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been considering that organization. I'm a graduate student at this place, and you go flow right into it. So you have to continually practice.
Practicing is the key word. You practice it, so you can get more comfortable saying it. You know, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get.
Comfortable. Right.
The more comfortable you get at it. So
Yeah.
I really like all of these inputs. So we've really covered a lot of ground here. So let's go, we're all immigrants. We know how it is. So what are some of the mistakes or I would say challenges, maybe pitfalls you've noticed amongst international students? Maybe our audience here is mostly would be Africans, so Nigerians, Ghanaian. So what are some cultural differences we can be aware of? Or what are some things to just be, cognizant of when I like how you started it, Tunji. Like you leave your cultural, all your cultural stuff behind with you at the airport when you land here, and you're here, you're in a new society, so you have to assimilate, or, of course, you don't want to just leave who you are, but you also have to
Right.
understand that you're in a new place, in a new environment, and you have to function in that environment. So, Tunji, since you're here,
All right. Let me put it this way. Since I've worked in the US and I've seen international students in different programs, international students, especially West Africans, Kunle probably can attest to this, Joan as well. We have a passive aggressive approach to doing things in the workforce. And if it's not too passive, it's to a point where we automatically obey authority, right? When it comes to, all right, this person is senior, I have to respect them, and they'll be doing something wrong. So one of the things that I always, from an international student or international immigrant standpoint, is speak up. You always have to step up. We've already been tagged as the workhorse. There are like four types of people in the workforce. We have a leader, we have an agitator, we have a workhorse, and then we have what I call the freeloader, right? In these groups, right, there's the Africans, the hardworking people are the workhorse. We talk the talk, we are shy to walk the walk, but we can walk the walk. That part is what we need to be able to bring to support our leadership skills. We are all leaders. I mean, whether you're first child, second child, we all have our responsibilities. I haven't seen any international students that doesn't have strong work ethics when they come out to the US. We have it. What we just need to do is break out and be able to speak loud. When something is going wrong, like I said, put the culture to the side, challenge status quo. I know it's in our innate cultural traits to obey authority, to respect authority. But part of that respect on the Western world, in the US, is also making sure that you call a spade a spade. You just have to speak up. Closed mouth don't get fed. Challenge status quo and just exhibit all your traits, all your competencies. Show it. We are great leaders. We know it. So we just have to exhibit it without holding back.
I like that.
That's great. I can like kind of follow up on that. So I really like the way you've put it, and I feel like I even want to be in one of your classes, Cindy, just from the insights you share. And I think if I rephrase what you're trying to explain, which is very true about our culture and how we come out, but I think that it is about kind of maybe feeling confident enough to give constructive feedback, because it could be speaking up, it could be somebody above, it could be somebody below you, but it is just our nature and our culture to be very, just do the work and just move on with things. So I think learning to give constructive feedback over time where, it could be positive, it could be negative, but your point is stated and it doesn't change, what's going on around you. So I really like that, challenging the status quo and, almost like taking the credit. I think that's what you said about walking the walk, something like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Walking the
Yes.
walk.
Yeah. And so for me, the insight I'll bring to that question is around maybe mistakes or pitfalls or whatnot. It's just around in the US, I have noticed that there's always a lot of small talk. And if you're not really aware, or you are not very vast in your knowledge about what's going on, then you may not be able to contribute as much. So I think we, as part of maybe leaving one's culture at the airport or whatnot, learn to integrate into the US, into the system. So while there's a lot going on, and you may not be interested in American football, for example, but find something that you are interested in so that you can engage in, like, like going back to like Tunji's example of our social setting, when you're at a table and you meet other guests at a wedding, you can converse about how do you know the couple and stuff like that. Similarly, in the workforce, there are small talks around what's going on. So be aware of what's going on, in the US, and pick an interest so that you can have small talks and things to talk about. And that was one of the things I learned early on, when I first moved here. And then the other thing I want to talk about was just about feeling, while we leave our culture at the airport, be confident in your culture, be confident in your background, be confident in the fact that you sound different from others, and own it, right? So I mean, of course, we all, like Nigerian here, we all pronunciations of different things, nomenclatures of different things. And so, and when I first came, I would pronounce things very differently, or call things what they're called in the UK or called in Nigeria. And it becomes a discussion, and we laugh about it, and I educate them, and they ask you, oh, what was that, Joan? Very, very funny story. I was riding with a colleague, and and I don't know if people know what a space bus is, but here we call it what do we call it here? It's like I'm blanking on it now.
Minivan, right?
It's a minivan here.
Yeah.
Thank you. And even that word space bus, I hadn't said it in years. But the guy was driving weird in front of me. My colleague was there, and I was like, we're going to a team lunch. And I'm like, this space bus should move. And she just cracked up. She was like, what's a space bus? A space bus. And I said, so I had to educate her what we call it. And it's a minivan here. So it's okay. My point of saying that is just to say that be confident because people, in some ways, we shy out, we keep quiet, we don't talk because we don't want to sound different. But it's okay. That's how we learn. And so that's another, learning for me when I first came, and I still hold true to it today.
But I really like that. Be confident in who you are. You acknowledge that you're from a different place. You're trying to assimilate, but you don't lose the person that you are in the process.
Yes, but also open to learn, because you have to integrate. Yes.
Yeah. Integrate should be the word. Maybe not assimilate, but you're integrating into a new system. So I really like that. There's still room for questions if anyone wants to put in questions, but I feel like we're really covering a lot here. So let's see. We've talked about some of these stuff. Do you have any interview? Because interview is a big one. Since we just talked about challenges, people, small talk, all of that. Now you're getting to the interview where you have to sit down there and talk and show yourselves. It's no longer just the elevator pitch. You've passed that stage. It's presenting yourself. So what are some tips or what are some things that you have done to help yourself do well in interviews?
Yeah, maybe I can start. I think I've had the privilege of doing interviews, and I've also had the privilege of conducting interviews, so I can talk about it from both perspectives. Um, in terms of preparing for the interview, I think you want to think about it from the perspective of the hiring manager, right? Like if I'm interviewing someone and I have two candidates in front of me, who am I going to pick? Unfortunately, the hiring manager usually goes with someone who they think they like or who they think they will enjoy working with, right? That said, there's the table stakes of can this person do the job? Or even if the person doesn't have the relevant experience because it's early in their career, is this person going to be coachable? Right. So in my mind, I have a mental 2x2 matrix that I plot. It's a 2x2 matrix of will versus skill. And I always prioritize will versus skill. So even if you have the competency right now, but I think you can't in the long run or over time develop or, bring in that potential, I'll probably go with someone who has no experience, but I feel like the person will be able to learn. The person has intellectual curiosity. So again, why do I say all of this? Because as you prepare for your interviews, as you share your stories during the interviews, you want to come across as someone who is intellectually curious. So even if it's a space, an industry, or a function you've had no prior experience, how can you demonstrate that, hey, between the time I applied for this role and the time I was notified about the interview, I was able to do some work up front, acknowledging the fact that I do not know anything about this space or this company or this industry. I was able to do some work up front to help me ramp up gradually. If you're able to demonstrate those little things, then you pass that, will criteria that I've mentally put in my mind. And how can you do that, right? If there's a specific company or a specific role, spend some time doing the research, right? We have ChatGPT now that can do all the work for you. Ask ChatGPT about the company. Like what matters to this company? Are there some initiatives that's underway at the company, right? Get some insights around those things. Ask ChatGPT, or what's happening in this industry? What are some of the trends in this industry, right? Learn about those trends, weave it into your story. Now, even just reading up about these things and then showing up in the interview and they ask you a question, you'll be surprised that the knowledge you've retained by virtue of the research and the work that ChatGPT helped you to do will just flow through in the conversation that you're having. And for me as a hiring manager, as you weave those things into the conversation, then I'm thinking, okay, this is the kind of person I think I'd like to work with, right? I think this is someone who we can be in a room together and hash out details and solve problems together. That's the kind of person that I want on my team, regardless of the fact that you have experience either in the industry or even experience at all. So again, it's a long-winded way of saying preparing for the interviews, understanding some, getting some insights about the company, about the industry. Those things will go a long way in helping you shine during the interview.
What I took from there, you covered a lot, but some of what I took from there is do your research, know about the industry, know about the company, be able to articulate the things that you know about this company. And also, the hiring manager is not just looking at your knowledge, but they're looking at the person that you are. Can I sit down and have a chat with this person? Can I, some I've heard the word that you can't there's some things you can't teach them. You can teach them to do the work, but you can't change their personality. You can't change how they integrate into your work, into the work culture, because every place has their own culture. So I don't know. I wonder if Tunji wants to. Uh,
Yeah, let me chime in, and I'll probably skate out probably in the next 3 minutes. In addition to what Kunle said, from an interviewer standpoint and an interviewee standpoint, as an interviewer, or when you're doing your interview, you are the subject matter expert of your skill set, what you've done in the past. What you want to do is make sure that before going into that interview, you've done your research about the organization, the person you're talking to, as well as the role, right? Those are one of the things, those are the prep work prior to that day. On the day off, as you are going through that interview, you want to make sure that you know the job description offhand, and then what you've done as well. And you want, as you've written up your cover letter, that overlap between what you've done and what the new role entails, you want to make sure that you know it very well, so that you can articulate how you are going to contribute into the new role, as well as leave an opportunity to learn about the new role. One step back, soft skills are what gets you through the door. 78% of your soft skills. That's your critical thinking, your presentation skill, your creativity, your leadership skills, as well as how you articulate things. The hard skills, we might think of it as the technical skills, but every technical skills is different, because the baseline is what brings you in. You still have to learn the culture. Like Joan said, there are certain things that, when she first moved to the US, was different how it's pronounced in the UK and how it's pronounced in the US. Aluminium, we call it aluminium back home. In the US, we call it aluminum. My wife told my son, grab me the nylon bag. And Justin was staring at her like, what is a nylon bag? I said, child, it's a plastic bag. It's the same thing. So that's the hard skill. So if you know a programming platform, you know the programming platform. You still have to learn the organizational way of using those platforms. Don't try to overdo it when interviewing. Just show that you know the foundational knowledge of those technical skills. But keep in mind that you're the subject matter expert. You have two jobs: influence and convince a decision. So you know what you're talking about. So you have to be really, really be the foundation of what you're talking about and stand on it. Um, from an interviewer standpoint, our job is to probe further. There's this thing called SOAR: situation, obstacle, action, and results. When they ask you a behavioral question, tell me about a time you were tasked with a project and it failed. What did you do? Trust me, don't feel bad about, especially those projects that you know didn't go the way you planned it. You want to talk about them and highlight what you learned from them, because those will help you get through an interview stage. Now, that's from an objective standpoint that is guided by the OFCCP guideline, the EEOC, all of that from a compliance standpoint. Subjectivity, like Kunle said, it's hard to get through that. I mean, how you pronounce word can turn people off. I call it cultural isolation. You can't help a person. You can take the horse to the river, but you can't make it drink. All right. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But be confident and don't get let down when you go through an interview. The more interviews you go through, the better. If you're in a school right now, go through every single mock interview experiences. Um, I will be sharing a link that I share with my student that allows everyone to start getting themselves acclimated to how things work in the Western world. The website is called theforage.com, where all US companies, especially the consulting firms, put out projects for people to work on. You put it up, you can work on it, get yourself acquainted with it, and as well as see what's being posted on their job website as well.
Thank you so much. Very aware of, I don't want to keep people too long, but we had such a wonderful conversation. I feel like we touched on a lot, and I hope, and I'm sure people should have gotten, little tidbits here and there, even in the chat, we've been putting things there. So there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of ground to cover. But I think at the end of the day is, this people have done it before you for our students that are here. And where there's a will, there's a way. If you're struggling with anything, if there are areas where I'm like, oh, you're like, I don't know what to do, reach out, ask questions. If it's interviewing, practice, practice, practice. If it's the elevator pitch that you're not sure of, you've been meeting people, but you don't feel like you're making a good impression, practice. Ask people, what do you think? Record yourself, do it, and send it to them, and see how get constructive feedback. If there are ways you're saying things and you're sure you're not, like, maybe they're not really understanding me, practice with a friend, ask your colleague, your professor, someone around you. There's always resource. If you ask, there is help. So I want to say thank you to our amazing panelists. We could not have done this without you. Thank you, Tunji. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kunle. This has been a very good one, and we hope that you can come back, because we're going to be having some of these conversations from time to time. So we hope that you can come back and work with us. So thank you again for all of this. And we have some resources that we'll share. Maybe on our website, on our social media pages. I know, Cindy, you were saying, or maybe in the chat too. We'll share some of them.
All right.
All
This
right.
is great.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
Great.
you.
thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone, and all the best for the process.